Hi everyone, welcome to Dirghayu podcast. My name is Darshan from DASAR. At Dirghayu, we bring in healthcare entrepreneurs, business leaders, investors, and we try to decode all things healthcare so that we can live a 100-year life and enjoy and make a long life a gift rather than a curse. One such speaker and our guest today is Dr. Ashwin Naik. I've known him for a few years. He's been a friend, an advisor, the go-to person. The thing that stands out the most for me, apart from his credentials, which I'll do a quick intro on, is always being calm, always having a smile on his face, and taking some of the biggest challenges in healthcare, in life, head on. So, Ashwin, welcome to Dirghayu podcast. I'm so happy to finally have you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Darshan, always to meet and to learn so much from you.
Brilliant, and I think the learning is more from this side. So, let me give a quick introduction of Ashwin. Ashwin is a TEDx fellow, he's a Ashoka fellow, he's hosted TEDx in Pune and otherwise. He is an author of three books. He's built multiple healthcare startups. He is one of the few people in India and around the world who's operated at affordable health, who's worked on genomics, and he's also worked on mental health and wellness. And his latest venture is called Manah Wellness, where he focuses on well-being of employees, of people all around, and we'll decode that a little bit in today's podcast. This podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to talk all things about well-being, about mental health, about social media and its effects, and just the overall healthcare and how can you live a long and happy life. So, Ashwin, I've given a quick overview. I couldn't possibly remember all the things that you've done, but you've been such an inspiration to me and to so many other people. A lot of the healthcare founders come to you, talk to you, you guide them, you supported them, right? You're one of the driving force for Pune healthcare ecosystem as well. So my first question is, you've built multiple businesses, healthcare startups. You've been in this space, the healthcare space, for a very long time. Why did you choose healthcare and that also affordable health when you could have done anything else, right? So what's the origin?
Right. Darshan, thank you very much for inviting and saying all these kind words. My background is in health because I trained as a doctor. But during the final year of my education, I started to think about what is the impact you can create as a medical professional, as a young person, right? Those were the days when a lot of young people were getting into politics, getting into social work, etc. So I was always curious about what is it that you can do at scale and at impact. So that journey took me to this quest of what did other doctors do, right? And one of the fascinating things I found is in medicine, especially, fundamental changes in how we live, how long we live, have not come by curing people one at a time. Some significant things were discovered, whether it is antibiotics or certain medications or certain origin of disease, right? Finding out how cholera is caused, etc. So then I got interested in the life stories of these people. Right? What kind of people were these? And I found a few patterns. Number one was they were always thinking slightly different. Even when they were working in medicine or health, they were thinking slightly different. So I started to think about what is in our field that is slightly different today. And I chanced upon the Human Genome Project. So I said, it's like the internet moment of healthcare. Right? It felt like if you could decode the human genome, you could possibly find out everything about the human body and also find solution for all the issues. So I got excited and I said I have to specialize in it. So I went to the US to study. As I was studying for my PhD, I got a call from this company which was doing the Human Genome Project. And interestingly, they called me to do a reference check on my boss. Okay, so the story is this. So they wanted to hire my boss and my PhD advisor. So they called me and I said, yeah, this is what he does, blah, blah, blah. And then the boss said, I am at the tenure position in this university. I don't want to go, but you get that guy. He is looking for something interesting to do. So my first job, my PhD advisor convinced me to drop the PhD and join this company.
Wow.
As a master's student. It was a phenomenal opportunity for me to be in the heart of the Human Genome Project. And I learned two things there. One is, if you pick an impossible problem and put enough number of committed people and don't give them enough resource, they will solve it. So for example, in the Human Genome Project, the founders, there was a bunch of them, but the leader was Craig Venter. He said, we will do the Human Genome Project and publish it on February of 2001. This was 3 years before that happened, or 2 years before. The date was given, what we will do was given, and a bunch of people. And everybody worked like crazy to get that done. So coming back to your question, my first job, working in a situation where the target was impossible, we had to get done things very fast with limited resources. When I came back to India, I said, what is the equivalent of that? Right? Is there something that needs to be solved here, which nobody is looking at? Again, something which not everybody is looking at, but it's a big enough challenge. And rural health, because of the sheer size of our country, seems like a good opportunity too. So this is a roundabout answer to your question.
And on a lighter note, dropout means that is guaranteed success in life, right? That seems to be the secret, that you have to drop out and then you get great success down the road. Ashwin, COVID-19 has wreaked havoc in the world. Apart from it being a pandemic and taking numerous lives, right? Millions of lives worldwide. I think the biggest shock to the system has been, to a large extent, mental health as well, right? And I see that it's affected not just the young, but even the old. And so you couple that with social media and 11 hours of device per day, right? You're so much kind of consumed in an immersive or alternate world that you're not necessarily with yourself or with people around you.
Right.
So maybe what you could do is give a quick overview of why you started Manah Wellness and what does well-being mean to you, especially because we are talking about a 100-year life.
Right.
And then, the effect or how COVID has affected mental health of people.
Right. So there's no doubt that COVID has really sensitized people about mental health and well-being. But I think this is just a wake-up call. It was always there. Right? People were struggling, people were going through these phases. But what has happened during COVID is a phenomenon where everybody had a sense of not having any control on anything. Right? We, as humans, we are used to having certain amount of control. Maybe not everything, but we have certain amount of control, or at least we perceive we have some amount of control. But COVID just threw that out. We had no control on our work, our personal life, and if God forbid somebody was unwell, we had no control on the resources, right? The second thing was, this is the first time, I think, in history when there was something which happened which affected everybody. Nobody was spared. No social structure, no social strata, no economic strata, no age. Everybody was impacted indirectly or otherwise. So I think it shook our belief systems, it shook our value systems, etc. And then two things happened. One, people got into real panic mode, which exaggerated, the kind of underlying social, mental, emotional issues that were Second thing which we are seeing now is people also started questioning, what am I doing with my life, right? And that I think is a phenomenal question to ask, and it will have so many implications, right? Which means I will start asking, what do I do with my life? What should I do with my work? How do I find meaningful work? How do I build relationships? How do I live longer? How do I live a life of significance? So many interesting questions come up when you start thinking about it. This is also the first time in history when younger people have started to question a lot of things. For example, the concept of work. What does it mean to work? Why should I go to an office? Right? I mean, if you look at the numbers of resignation and the great resignation, etc., I think it's companies are seeing upwards of 40-50% turnover attrition. Right? What is also happening is the power is shifting from companies to employees. And it has never happened before, right? The employees today can dictate which company they can go to, what kind of work environment they want, etc. Now, this puts organizations in a very peculiar situation. They're again not used to not having this control. And one of the ways they support their employees in this transition is to help them be emotionally well, emotionally healthy. And that's what we do at Manah Wellness. We say the traditional form of supporting well-being of an employee at workplace is old and it's broken, right? The traditional way of supporting employee well-being is through a system called EAP, Employee Assistance Program. Employee Assistance Program was developed about 40-45 years ago, and it has its roots in helping people with addiction problems come back to work. 40-45 years, that was a big issue, alcoholism predominantly. And people coming back to work, there needed to be some kind of handholding. So that then evolved to helping them with financial issues, helping them with mental health, etc. So now EAP is a well-established sector. But there are 2 or 3 challenges with that. Utilization rate of EAP across the world is less than 5, 6, 7%. In India, it is less than 2%, which is exactly like a gym membership in the US. You pay whatever, $1,000, and then you never go, right? And for the service provider, the gyms of the US also are happy because their whole model is I sell a gym membership in January and I hope to God you don't come back. Right? So that's the exact same model with you. Then the second piece is, I don't know about you, but 99, I would even say 99.5% of Indian population has never met or interacted with a psychologist. We don't even know the difference between a psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, this and that. So what happens is, when you really need the help, it never comes to your mind that I should talk to a psychologist.
Yeah.
When you really need help, you don't have the mind space to say I should talk to a psychologist. Right? That's the second piece. And third, all mental health activity till now, by and large, has focused on intervening when it's too late. We see some drastic event happening, which happened a couple of years ago with a movie star. Everybody started talking about mental health. Our belief is these 3 things have to change. We have to focus on the proactive nature of engagement so that people know where I can go when I need help. We have to focus on the preventive aspect of healthcare, of mental health. And we have to focus on building engagement around mental health. So we built this platform which has assessment, which has engagement, which has training, and of course counseling therapy, etc. And we deliver it to companies on a digital platform. I think it's a very early stage. We're very excited. We have lots of plans on how we will take it to the next level, and I'm happy to share more.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think 2 parts that's kind of come out to me based on what you said. One is people questioning themselves in terms of who they are. And I fall under one of those categories where after what happened in May 2020, DASAR was born out of that thinking, where I said, this is who I am, what I want to do, and this is what I'm committing to. So that was point number 1. The second point that you said is this is post-COVID, people have started asking some really tough questions, not only about themselves but about society, the rules that we have,
Yeah.
the corporations, and how do I engage. And I wrote an article recently where I said how there were roaring 20s. So 1920 to 1930s, we had a massive economic boom that took place. And that was on the backside of 1916 to 1919, where the first pandemic happened. The Spanish flu took place. And there are a lot of parallels between that and what has happened in COVID-19, where economic stimulus was given, technology, telecom at that time. Now we have AR, VR, we have machine learning, all of these technologies coming through. So a lot of forces are kind of coming together, where I also believe that 2020 to 2030, we are going to see some of the greatest times of our lives.
Yes.
Right? And and so that's where the problems need to be addressed. India is a 1.3 billion people population, which is extremely diverse, strong cultures, strong people, strong behavior, highly emotional as well, right? And then you have legacy issues, which any society has. So my question to you is, you've talked and you worked in affordable health.
Yeah.
Now you are talking about a problem of well-being and mental health, where people really need to think of their employees or their family members from a holistic standpoint.
Right.
What does holistic well-being actually mean, right? What does that? So I'm trying to decode Dirghayu, right? I'm saying out of 100 years, if 99 years I'm healthy, I'm moving, I'm doing, it's a purposeful life, right?
Right.
Where I'm able to do all the things that excite me, that I'm curious about. I think that's a life well spent.
Right.
What would that be based on what you are trying to do, based on all the years of experience and all the interactions you've had?
Right. So there are a couple of things, Darshan. Many years ago, the same professor that I mentioned, he had predicted that people of my age will live up to 110, 120 years. Right? And he had pushed us to think about what will your life look like if you were to live to 120 years. And one of the hypotheses is the linear way of living will not make sense. Right? The linear way is you go to college, school for 20 years, college for 7-8 years, and work, and then do that. You have to start thinking about you might have 2 or 3 careers. Right? And my sense is more than that. So let's think about it a little bit. The question that you said, we don't need to wait for the pandemic to start asking what am I doing with my life.
Correct.
We can design it through every 5 years, 10 years, and stepping back and saying, what have I learned in the last 10 years? What can I do in the next 10 years? Because it takes 10 years to do something meaningful. And my definition of a life well lived is living a meaningful life, what I call the life of substance, right? And how do you pick life of substance? Is you deeply commit to something. It could be personal, like health, fitness, financial freedom that you speak about, or it could be societal change, impact, etc. Or it could even be technology, right? It could mean that I go straight into this field. Like for example, for me, Human Genome Project it's an advanced technology project, and it will give me that excitement. But from a personal point of view, I always think of this in 3 buckets. Right? Will I be able to derive energy from the work that I do? Right? So I shouldn't be drained out just because I'm doing this work. Right? Second, will I be able to build meaningful relationships because of this work? Right? And third, will I have control on this on my time?
Right.
If I can do these 3, today I feel happy. Sometimes the balance is off. But when I think of the longer term, if I were to live for 120 years, 150 years in my kids' lifetime, it's a very difficult question, right? Because we might not have the same energy, we might not have the mobility and all that. So those are difficult questions. I hope that we're able to build, on the technology front, certain tools which help us live a meaningful life, but also have technology which allows us to build relationships as we go along, right? It's very difficult, as you know, as we grow as adults, it's very difficult to make new friends, right? So how do we create this opportunity to make friends throughout your life, right? One way to do it is at the age of 60 years, go back to school. Start again, start another degree. I mean, that's where our friendships are.
Correct.
All our friends are college friends.
College,
Deep,
school.
meaningful friends are there.
Correct.
So can we go again, do some program? Maybe there is like what you've been doing, cohort-based programs for 60 years olds, right? Retirement ke baad shuru karo, and then we build something. And then you find, people will have, for sure, will have multiple careers, multiple career paths. The idea of anything linear, whether it is career, life is gone. You will find people going like what I call the jungle gym career. Right? You go from here to there, pick something and try to make sense in the end.
So, yeah, that was just absolutely amazing in terms of the way you approach it and the three things that you mentioned, right? I want to now go into the problem. And the problem is also everybody, the content is available worldwide. You go on Google, you'll find it on Instagram, you'll find it on YouTube, on how do I get fit, how do I stay mentally fit, how do I build resilience, and then you have anti-fragility, using chaos for creation. Right? Resilience is the ability to come back from a shock to status quo. So my question to you is, in today's world where you have a lot of social media, email, Zoom meetings, whether that's even for school or at work, and then you have your family, your friends, your society, all of these kind of come together, the social structure to it. One of the things that I'm seeing recently is I'm overburdened, I'm overworked, I'm burnt out. And that also begs me to the point of how do you build resilience or mental fitness, as I like to call it.
Right.
Would love to hear your thoughts with some examples where you've seen this overburdened, overworked, not being able to cope, being burnt out, taking some time off, not having the balance.
Right.
Any thoughts on how do you approach this and what are some examples around this?
So, a couple of things. Number one, as opposed to the Western society, Indian society, it's very difficult for us to act in isolation. It's impossible. It's very difficult. If you decide tomorrow I want to do something, there are 100 people who will say no to you. And these are well-meaning people and you cannot say no to them. Right? So that's number one. So resilience in that context is really complex for us. In a way, I would say we need social resilience rather than individual resilience. Individual resilience or mental fitness is a Western concept. I think we have to think of it in the context of India. For example, let's say if you were to build resilience in younger people, it's not useful to go after one person at a time. I think we have to think of where will be the best leverage. For example, schools. Just think about it. 25 years ago, when you and I were in school, the concept of structured physical education was not there. PE class was a PE class.
Correct.
We all remember. Usme masti karna, forget it. Today you go to a school. The first thing parents ask the school is, do you have a sports facility? Do you have, and there are multiple of them, right?
Yeah.
Football, this, that, all kind of taekwondo and all that. How did that change happen? That's why you see younger people when they leave school, they're at least physically active. They want to, of course, they go into the other side, but they want to play sports. The culture of gym has gone. Similar thing we are seeing in mental health. The generation which is graduating from school today has seen a counselor on campus for the last 10 years. For them, it is not foreign to come out and say, I want to talk to a counselor. That is not you. Our generation, it was very different. So those are the kind of societal sort of interventions we'll have to do. And we do a little bit of work around this.
Right.
Coming back to individual, I think it all starts, many people today in the workplace don't even realize what is the problem. What are they struggling with? People say, I'm irritated, I can't sleep well, I'm having fights, I'm having anger issues. But nobody has worked with them to say, okay, why is this happening? right? And people have accepted. So I think the first thing that we do as a company is go in and do an assessment. And many a time when we do an assessment, we realize that what people are saying and what the real problem are related but two different things. Right? And then we go in and work with them and build that intervention, etc. So on a group level, when we do this, which is our preferred mode of intervention, we've seen that either in terms of managing stress, the ability to manage stress, or cope with this sudden shift in environment, people are able to be prepared for it. I think the whole thing is about what tools, what skill, and what mindset do I have to deal with challenges. Because at any given life stage, there is going to be some challenge or the other that you have to deal with. So I think getting ready for that, and again going back, like I said, as a community, as a society, is very important for us. Rather than, for example, we are not very big on apps. To your point, there are 20,000 apps on mental health which are more than 1 million downloads. There are 100,000 apps in total. Anything you need about fitness, financial freedom, mental health is available out. Why is that people are not doing it? Right? I think it's about that behavioral change that you mentioned. It's also about having a accountability, element of accountability. That could come through a coach, or that could come through a cohort, or that could come through a peer that is required. I think we are unable to. I mean the example of all these open courses which everybody starts and doesn't finish is phenomenal. So I think that's a roundabout view of this.
If I can ask you, in terms of frameworks or methodologies or approaches that you've come across and you've found people of different ages benefit to become mentally fit. Anything that comes to your mind which you think, this is something that everyone should be aware of, but also be using in addition to the accountability and the things that you said.
Yeah, I don't know of any framework. There are many frameworks in psychology, but I'm not going to talk because I'm not an expert on that. For example, CBT, a lot of people find it useful, etc. But from a general approach to mental well-being, I think there are 2 or 3 things that I personally feel have helped. The first thing is looking at, like somebody told me, look at every situation as if you are advising a friend. Right? If I am in a situation, how do I step out and say, if I were to advise a friend, what? And you will see that your reaction will be very different if you were to do that. That is one thing that I always use. The second one is, I'm a firm believer of this gut reaction, sudden reaction versus taking a deliberate action. And there are many books on this, right? Like Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yeah.
There are many, I can't remember now, but the whole approach of taking deliberate action and seeing, what is the second order effect, or there is something that I can think through and come back. That really helps in avoiding long-term pain. Maybe you can that's something that second one. The third one is, which in my personal case I found it very useful, is when things are stressful, I always look back on where we started. And, I mean, if you go back one generation, it's unimaginable. Like my parents' generation would come to this stage, right? It's unimaginable how much we have moved in the last 30, 40, 50 years. So just going back and saying how much progress we have made gives a lot of hope to what we can do in the future. So this is sort of the framework for life. For mental health, I think there are specific ways people can be helped, and I would leave that to the psychologist to figure out, because it's unique for each individual, it's personalized for that situation, etc. But I will leave it at this and say that if there is an issue, right, with mental health or mental fitness, talking to a psychologist and getting their perspective on how you can handle this. One of the misconceptions a lot of people have, a psychologist will tell them what to do. I don't think that's the case, right? It's about getting the tools and the frameworks to deal with my unique situation and having somebody to discuss that in good more.
So this is great, right? Now, one of the things that you've done a lot is operate at scale, right? Impact at scale. And I see this where you go into a company which may have 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 200,000 people working. But every person has a different context,
Right.
a different problem, a different issue to solve.
Right.
So, how do you do this at scale? Like, how do you do well-being at scale? What can you do so that it is not custom built,
Right.
but it is personalized?
Right.
So, how do you make something like this at scale?
Yeah, so I mean, we are still building this, but the way it works right now is we have a digital platform which does assessments at scale.
Right.
Right? So if I have 1,000 employees, if I can immediately do an assessment of where each person is on the spectrum, and typically if we look at 100 employees, we are able to bucket them in 4 different buckets.
Okay.
The first 15% is somebody who needs an active intervention.
Okay.
And when we say active, counseling, therapy, in some cases psychiatric interventions, etc. And they are struggling to cope with the day-to-day work and life. Then there's another 25-30% who are not actively struggling now, but will benefit. They are, maybe they have work-life balance issues, they have some relationship issues, etc. For them, we have a set of support groups that they can join. This could be life stage related, this could be issue related. For example, nowadays what is happening, a lot of companies are losing people, right? Layoffs are happening. So we have support groups for supporting employees who are in that transition. So that's the second bucket. Then there's the third bucket, people who are not even aware, not actively seeking, they're just going about their life. Right? For them, it's very hard for us to bring them in, and so for them, we have company level events, workshops, webinars, etc. Then there is this 5-10% at the very top. These people are aware, they're actively seeking help already, and they're committed to mental health. For them, we have a separate program called the Wellbeing Champions, where they become our ambassadors. So we train them and they become the eyes and ears. So while we are not able to do at scale everything, but we're able to bucket them and then we go into each person and build that intervention or support.
Now, I read different papers and I see, news has a habit of throwing some big numbers out there. I read a number that 92% of the people between 15 to 30 need some sort of intervention. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I want to learn from you, how big is this problem in the Indian context? Because a lot of the numbers that we get are based on US research or European research.
Right.
So, can you contextualize in terms of India? Do you have some stats that you can share with us?
I think stats are not that relevant. I'll tell you why. For example, if I were to tell you 92% of India should go to the gym, would you agree or not? Yes?
Yes.
92% of Indian youth should do some kind of exercise. Why is it shocking when we say 92% of Indian youth should work on mental fitness?
Correct.
Right? Because we confuse fitness with illness.
Correct.
Mental illness is a very small segment. Mental illness is maybe 12-15% of the population. But 100% need mental fitness.
Correct.
So I think the discourse has to change from this mental illness to mental fitness. Everybody, each one of us can be better, right? Whether through tools or whether through support, etc. So that's sort of the broader thesis that we're working on. Coming back to the actual impact that we're seeing in the society today, I think the number of cases where active intervention is required is increasing. Younger people particularly are struggling. And I'll tell you a couple of sort of hypotheses why.
Yeah.
25-30 years ago, if you were growing up, I'm sure both of us grew up in similar surroundings. Our grandparents or our parents made 90% of the decision. Our job was to either follow or break the rules, right? So everything was cast. You will study here, you will marry this kind of person, blah, blah, blah. Now suddenly, this demographic, the people who are in the workforce today, have nobody, right? They are thrown into places like Bangalore or whatever place. They have to make all decisions. We never, like my father, I don't think had to make a decision about like major life choices, right? But now everything, including which house you will rent, whose roommates you will live with, where will you work, etc. So younger people are under this tremendous pressure to make decisions and make life-changing decisions. Puts a lot of pressure, and they're not equipped. They're not equipped to make decisions on their own. So that's one. The second is the social isolation. Right? They're going moving around. All of that is putting a lot of pressure. And like you said, social media, the pressure to be the best, to look good, be fit, so much, right? I mean, everything is around being better than the other. Like the joke goes, if you're not Instagram, how do you know if you've eaten? Right? You have to Instagram, or how do you know what clothes you wear? So that kind of pressure is I think building up, and if we don't check it, there's going to be a little bit of disastrous consequence to this. My big worry, however, is combination of mental stress, social media, and what is coming, unemployment. That's the biggest danger, right? If we can't have enough employment for young people, this is going to go out of control. So I think we have to look at not only the technological impact of what is happening in the world, but also how the society is changing. 40% of our young people below the age of 35, 30.
Yeah.
If we don't have enough job for them, we'll have other kinds of problems.
Yeah, and report by, I think, in the Startup India report, what they said is about 10 million jobs need to be created in India each year.
Yes.
I mean, that's quite phenomenal,
Yes.
right? If you think about it. I'm not sure the accuracy of the numbers, but it's a big number. Even
I
if
would
you
say
are
even
off by-
bigger. I would say it's probably 10 million a month.
Wow,
Because we have that many young people.
coming into the
Coming out.
workforce. And then are they equipped?
Yes.
Are they skilled enough? Do they have the mindset? Are they entrepreneurial?
Yes.
Now that leads me to my next question about you, Ashwin, right? You've built and sold multiple healthcare startups. You've achieved what you would want to achieve, right? From the traditional lifestyle, if you wanted to look at it from the last, 50 years
Right.
standpoint. Yet you go on, and I remember having a conversation with you just before the pandemic, I suppose, where you were launching Manah Wellness.
Right.
What's the calling? Like, why this need to do this?
So, I'm sure you will relate to this. There are certain set of people who are unemployed, right? They have to keep doing something to the extent that they're unemployed. And it's generally true. If you look at entrepreneurs, I think most people, they will be terrible employees, right? They're very good in solving problems. But going back to your question, I have not built a lot of companies. I think that's a misconception. I have maybe 2-3 companies only. But
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What all have you built in the healthcare space?
Yeah, my first startup experience was a clinical genomics company called Triesta, which we started way back. I was employee number 1 at that company, and that was acquired by HCG in 2004. Then we started the rural health company, Vatsalya. That company I ran for about 12 years. 2015, I moved from day-to-day operations. 2015, we set up another mental health company called Serenity, which got acquired by CureFit in 2019, and now Manah Wellness. So not too much, but I've been lucky to find areas where there is enough scope, enough challenge, and an opportunity to play for 5-10 years.
Right.
So if the space doesn't allow me to play for 5-10 years, I don't get very excited, right? So that's sort of the the places I've operated in. Coming to your question, I think it's the challenge of solving a problem. And if somebody says you can't solve rural health, then you start thinking, like, why is it not possible? It's not that we don't produce enough doctors. It's not that we don't have good quality nurses. Why is that? Why is it that we can't solve the problem of access? Similarly for mental health.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't know the problem. It's not that we don't have the tools, technology, ability. But why can't we solve it? So a combination of a big enough challenge and an opportunity to make a serious dent. If we solve this, we can make a good enough dent. I think that's all. So I think of challenges in a 10-year cycle.
Right.
And this I have done for many years. Looking at it and saying, okay, if I were to spend the next 10 years, would we be able to make some serious dent, right?
Another person comes to my mind, Sridhar Shukla. He started GS Lab and then has built K-Point.
Yes.
We had him on the podcast. We're very lucky to again have conversations with him. And he says exactly the same things. Darshan, we think that we are in a hurry, don't have enough time. But you have to give it time and you have to think in 10-year cycles.
Right.
So he also uses the exact same time frame, which is I'm going to dedicate myself, I'm going to commit myself to this cause for the next 10 years. Right? And there is no if.
Yeah.
There is no but what.
Yes.
Right? There is just do.
Yeah.
You just have to do it. And another great successful entrepreneur, right, who's just built businesses after businesses and found success, right? Because you just keep digging the hole till you find success.
Right.
One of the things at DASAR that I'm trying to do is focus on these really acute problems. The knowledge, the content, everything is out there for us to become fit, for us mentally or physically fit, for us to become financially independent, so managing money. And the third one is to become the best at what we do. Right? So can I chisel? Right? I use the chiseling approach. Chisel till you carve and you become best at what you do. And that is the definition that I'm saying in terms of peak human performance. Right? And so my question to you is, what are some of the routines that you follow on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis, which are non-negotiables for you? Right? Because I'm trying to decode, what makes Ashwin Ashwin.
Yeah. So I don't do many things, but I do few things which I'm very particular about. For example, I have to have my calendar fixed. Calendar fixed in the sense that I don't need to have like meetings for meetings, but mentally I have to have a calendar for this phase in my mind. And I'll tell you how it looks like. Right? So I have a certain time of the day where I will only do meetings. Nobody else can call for a meeting beyond that time. There's a certain time in my calendar where I only do reading or writing or whatever. So it is blocked out. So as long as I have a non-negotiable calendar, not activity-based, but from a mind space point of view, I'm very good. I'm very happy. Otherwise, it just, if I have to randomly pick, for example, my family complains, I never pick up the phone. Because it's not, I'm not in the habit of picking up phone. I'm sure you also have seen this problem. But I will make it a point to call you back or whatever has to be done. So managing your time. According to me, I think the highest level of wealth is ability to control your time.
Absolutely.
If you can say, I will do this and this only on my time, I think there's no better freedom, financial freedom than this. Right? So how do you define that? So first of all, I figure out what is the peak energy time for me. And that is where I will focus on the deep work that I need to do. Anything else I can be flexible. Second, I'm also very big on having routines. So if I have to do one-on-ones with the team, I insist that it is blocked. There's no, it's not that, okay, let's do one-on-one. It's Monday, 6 o'clock. I know this person will come one-on-one and it just takes away so many things off my head, right? So those kind of rituals are very good. And lastly, I think our team also agrees, I don't stress too much
I will never see you stressed.
no, yeah, not me, but also I'm not tough on people. I'm tough on results, but I'm not tough on people. So I have a very okay, chalta hai attitude with people, which a lot of people don't like. But I want them to succeed. So the focus is making them succeed, not sort of going after them and killing, sort of squeezing it. So in that way, I've been lucky to work with some great people. Finally, Darshan kya hai? Find a big enough problem, find good enough people who are willing to come with you, give them the freedom, right? 90% of your work is done. Right? In the earlier days, I used to say, my job is to find the hill. Which hill to climb? उसके बाद तो बाकी लोग कर लेंगे.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, Ashwin, it's such a lovely conversation with you. So we are almost at the end of the podcast. One last topic that I wanted to talk to you about is so many other activities that you're involved in, right? And I see that at public policy level, systems thinking level, change maker or making change at local or national or global level. So would love for you to kind of walk us through what are some of the biggest challenges that you see that we face today, either in India or in the world, and that you hope someone is going to be working on that or someone should be working on.
Yeah, so from the little work that I'm involved in, my work largely is in healthcare, but look at outside as well. I think there are two areas which I feel passionate about. Number one, public participation in the political process. We don't have to go into any detail into this. It's very clear, right? Educated, professional, high, ambitious people don't want to get into politics. But that is the kind of people we need, right? That is the kind of people who should be in active politics, active public space, but we don't find it. So I think that's one area that I'm passionate about. I'm involved in this foundation called Apolitical, which is a global organization. We're trying to bring more young people into politics and support them. So that's one area. The second part, which I think, whether it is healthcare or others, if you look at what I've been involved in healthcare, whether it is rural health, medical, the central thesis is access. How do we create access to affordable healthcare? How do we create access to mental health services? How do we create access to employee well-being? Right? Everything is about access. This is services or support. The other part of access is how do you create access to productive employment for large number of people? I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. And to your point, we are at the cusp of the greatest time in history for India, right? I mean, the roaring 20s will be nothing.
Correct.
If
I totally believe that.
If the Russia-Ukraine war didn't happen, we would have grown like crazy. We were anyway growing during pandemic. We would have gone somewhere and we would come back and grow. But if the growth is not inclusive, yesterday I was reading a report, 3% of the people in India, people like you and me, are controlling majority of the resources. Right? 97% doesn't have. And out of that, about 60% is living on sustenance.
Yeah.
Someday the system will break.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to figure out a way to balance that equation. And my firm belief is productive, high quality employment. Not education, nothing. All those are secondary. Getting good quality work for people that they can earn a decent wage, take care of their family, I think will save us a lot. Otherwise, we are sitting on a social upheaval in the next 5-10 years.
So, very interesting time to live in.
Yes.
I know I said one last question, but I do have one more question because you talked about inclusive healthcare. And, the UPI changed the landscape from a financial inclusion standpoint, right? It is one of the most biggest impact innovations that has been done in the world at a national level, right? You don't need to carry cash, you don't need to have credit card. You use your phone through QR code or a mobile number. You can do any financial transaction that you want, by and large. Similarly, India is coming up with health stack.
Right.
Would love to hear your thoughts in terms of what it is, what do you expect it to be? Can you share how that could change or what you would like to see in it, right? Have you been able to go through some of this and share some thoughts?
Sure. So I do work with some of these programs which are linked to the what is now called the ABDM, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which is a UPI equivalent of healthcare. Now, a couple of things which are similar to UPI but different. One, of course, will have portability, will have data and all of that. What is different, however, is financial transactions are a multi-times a day activity. Right? Health is maybe once in a year, once in a few months type of activity. So there will be a little difference. But what will change? Till today, not only India, world over, the power in the healthcare sector is with the institutions or with the doctors. With ABDM, the power will shift back to us or to the individuals. Right? How? For example, if I have whatever the health ID, I can consult with a doctor on the platform, on any platform. It could be any of the health tech platforms. But I have access to everybody, not just the people on that platform. If I were to go to, let's say, Manah Wellness and I want to consult with psychologists, I have access to everybody through the backend with all the doctors, plus their rating, plus the reviews, etc. that I can get. I can transfer data to different hospitals, which is very inefficient today without having to go through this.
Yes.
I think for me, the biggest change that will happen is the shift of power from institutions to individuals. Of course, there are privacy issues that have to be overcome, etc. How insurance will be impacted, etc. But again, I think just like UPI revolutionized the way we transact, I think how we plan for health, how we budget for health, how we utilize health will change. And it's hard for me to imagine how different it will be in the next 5-10 years, right? I think it will be a phenomenal experience to be part of that movement.
Brilliant. So, Ashwin, this has been an awesome podcast. If you like this podcast, please share it with people. We are doing this because we want to spread more awareness and awareness through experience of people who are operating in this space, right? You're getting information which is first-hand, based out of real-world experiences. It's not something that we are just speculating, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to reach out to more people. The more we can get people to be aware of, say, the mental well-being space or your own health, living a long life. As a society, I truly believe we'll be much better off. So first off, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button now. Share it with 5 people that you can around you, who you think can benefit from this. And if you need more, or if you want us to invite some particular guest or speaker on this podcast, just drop a comment. I'll do my best to reach out to them and invite them on the Dirghayu podcast. So Dr. Ashwin, thanks a lot, and looking forward to seeing Manah Wellness make an awesome impact in the coming years.
Thank you, Darshan. My pleasure.